Coming up on Sports Night. Northwestern men's basketball has had a rough start to 2015, and things did not get much better this past week as they faced Purdue and Nebraska.
And in a two-game homestand, the women's team seeks revenge against Iowa and takes a stand against Minnesota. Could they protect the house?
Lacrosse just welcomed the nation's top-ranked recruiting class, but the team faces a daunting schedule. Our experts weigh in on the Wildcats' championship chances.
All that and more coming up on Sports Night.
Right now.
Welcome on into Sports Night, folks, the show that would have undoubtedly handed the ball off to Marshawn Lynch.
Well, Brandon, who cares about the actual game? I just want to know, how did Katy Perry get the halftime show over Left Shark? But that's an issue for a different time. Our job is to figure out what's going on with Northwestern men's basketball. Northwestern faced Purdue on Saturday, looking to win their first game of 2015. For the Cats' previous 6 losses have come by an average of less than 3 points. Purdue center A.J. Hammond's getting ready pregame. The 7-footer would terrorize the Wildcats in this matchup. Here he gets the putback slam over Alex Ola. Purdue takes an early 10-6 lead, but the Cats keep it close in the first half. Trey Demps, bang! 3-pointer ties up the game at 10 with 13 left in the first. Later on, Brian McIntosh finds an open Scotty Lindsey for the liftoff. More from the athletic guard and Justice Center now. We are going to fast forward to the final minute of the game. McIntosh here with the drive and the finish. The Wildcats head into halftime with a 1-point lead. But in the second half, they could just not contain Hammonds and the Boilermakers. Purdue freshman Vince Edwards finds his range, and U is forced to call a timeout. But then another highlight here for Northwestern. Sky Lindsey with the dunk. One of the few highlights for Cats fans. Northwestern is down 55-46. But Hammonds puts the game away from the line. He finishes with 6 points and 9 rebounds as Purdue beats Northwestern 68-60, extending the Wildcat losing streak to 7 games. Northwestern falls to 10-11 and 1-7 in the Big Ten. Bryant McIntosh and Trey Demps both scored 18 points for the Cats. However, they had 23 team fouls, and like you saw in the highlights, A.J. Hammonds made a feast out of Northwestern's defense. He scored 16 points and bringing down 9 boards.
The Northwestern men's basketball team dropped their 7th straight game Saturday night, falling to the Purdue Boilermakers 68-60. The Wildcats fell to 10-11 overall and 1-7 in Big Ten play. The big story of the night was a 21-4 run by the Boilermakers coming out of the second half, which ultimately proved too big of a hole for the Wildcats to climb out of.
The game was lost really the first 6 minutes of the second half. That was a real crucial stretch. I didn't like the way we came out of the locker room in terms of our intensity defensively.
That right there losses the game. I mean, besides that 6-minute stretch, we probably won the game.
They're hard to play against because they're huge, and they're like battering rams. I mean, every possession, they put a lot of pressure. I was very disappointed in the way we started the second half.
The Wildcats' next game is against the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Lincoln Tuesday night. At Welsh Run Arena, I'm Max Gelman, NNN Sports.
There's no time for sulking in Big Ten basketball. But with a pedestrian 1-8 record in conference play and an average point differential of just -6 in those losses, we all remember Maryland, you can't help but wonder, will this team break? The Wildcats took to the road looking to answer just that. The trip to Nebraska was a quick turnaround after the Purdue loss, and it was not fruitful. With just a 2-point lead going into halftime, the Huskers surged in the second half, gouging the Cats D for 41 points and shooting 67% from the field. Teron Petaway came hungry and left happy, hopping his way to 28 points.
We are now joined by Insane News' Henry Bushnell. Henry, thanks again for coming. We're going to get right to it. Northwestern has now lost its last 8 games. A handful of them have came by about single-digit points, but the big difference has been the defense. What have you seen from the Wildcat defense, and have they regressed these past couple games?
Yeah, I think they definitely have regressed. And if you just look at the statistics, Northwestern was the top 15 team defensively in the country last year when you adjust for opponent strength. This year, they're all the way down at 181 in the nation. That's a massive drop-off. The big thing is that they're not a very aggressive defense. They don't get a lot of steals, not a lot of live ball turnovers. And when you're going to play that way, you have to pride yourself on keeping opposing guards out of the lane. You can't allow any dribble penetration at all. Last year's team did that really well. This year's team, not so much. Collins actually, when we spoke to him today, he called his team's defense against Nebraska soft. That was the word he used. And this hasn't been an every game occurrence, but these past 2 games against Purdue and then Nebraska, it definitely has been.
Now, freshman Brian McIntosh leads the team with 16 double-digit scoring games, but that was not the case against Nebraska. He had arguably his worst game of the season. Northwestern really relies on McIntosh to get the offense rolling, and he's usually reliable in that regard. Why was he so inefficient on Wednesday, and how did his poor play impact the way that the whole Wildcat team played?
Yeah, well, to answer your second question first, the impact was huge because McIntosh is that guy. He's the general. He runs the show, and the offense flows through him whenever he's on the court. And he's been really good this season up to this point. But yeah, he did really struggle. I think one of the big reasons was just the way Nebraska played him defensively. Benny Parker was up in his grill all day. He played some really physical on-ball defense. He also played good off-the-ball defense, which is a big reason why McIntosh wasn't very involved. So, I mean, it's a tough game for McIntosh. Some people will say he hit that proverbial freshman wall. I'm not so sure that's the case, and I expect him to bounce back against Wisconsin, or if not, next week.
Now, Henry, my last question is rather blunt. The Wildcats are 1-8 in conference play. You've been covering them all season. What do you think? Are they the worst team in the Big Ten?
It's a tough one because, I mean, anybody who watched that stretch of really close losses against Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, Ohio State, there was no way you could label Northwestern as the worst team in the conference if you watch those. But then you look at the standings, and NU's 1-8, and even Rutgers and Penn State have multiple wins already. I still think Northwestern is better than both those teams, better than Rutgers, better than Penn State. But they're going to have to start winning some games. It's that simple. And these last 2 games will certainly put a little more doubt in my mind.
Henry, thanks again for joining us. For more from Henry and the rest of the Inside NU staff, visit InsideNU.com.
Coming up, Nebraska got the best of Northwestern this week, but one Wildcat maneuvered his way to a milestone. Find out who next on Sports Night.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for the sweet victories, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Why hang around waiting for opportunity to knock when instead you can track opportunity down and knock on its door? You might ask, what's the best way to identify where opportunity lives? Here's a hint. Its door is colored purple. Northwestern University. Opportunity awaits your knock.
Why spend your entire life looking for some on-ramp to the road to opportunity when there's already a well-traveled path? So you may be wondering, what does that path look like? Is it paved with gold? Well, here's a hint. It's actually paved with purple. Northwestern University. Your road starts here.
A few days removed from a tough 1-point loss at Penn State, the women's basketball team engaged in a record-breaking shootout Thursday evening against the number 20 Iowa Hawkeyes. Last time these two teams played, Iowa sent NU back home with an 83-70 loss. They shot under 35% in that game. They definitely didn't do that this time around. About 20 seconds into the game, though, Whitney Jennings makes the three-pointer. That was Melissa Dixon there with the assist. But then Maggie Lyon finds Alex Cohen for the easy layup. Cats are on the board, but Iowa leads early. Iowa would break the score open for a little bit, under 7 left. That's Dixon with 3 of her team-high 29 points. The Hawkeyes have a 58-41 lead going to halftime. Game over, though, right? No. Maggie Lyon for 3. She'd score 12 points in the second half. Now with under 5 left. Nice spin move from Lyon. NU now down just 5, 86-81. But Bethany Doolittle and Samantha Logic put the game on ice. The latter finds the former twice in the final minute. And Iowa escapes Evanston with a 3-point victory, 102-99. And here's more from Coach Joe McEwen and Nia Coffey after the game.
I would just say overall this year our mentality has changed a lot. No matter what the score is, if we're up by 20, if we're down by 20, we're going to play as hard as we can. And we played as a team today. We just ran out of time, but we still just play together.
You know, just disappointed in our defense. Loved our fight in the second half and how we came back. It was a great second half to watch. And, the effort, Nia, those guys played a lot of minutes, left everything on the floor. But, the effort was phenomenal. Give Iowa some credit. They made a lot of shots. And, they got 3 seniors that are probably pros that, you got to, been playing together a long time, and they make a lot of plays.
This just gives us a chance to come back to play as Northwestern as we play. We have plenty of games to come back. We're a great team, so we'll just show what we're made of for the rest of the season.
Both teams combined to make an NCAA record 32 three-point field goals. Nia Coffey led all scorers with 35 points. Check this stat out. All of NU's 13 three-pointers came from the trio of Coffey, Deary, and Maggie Lyon. Melissa Dixon led the Golden Gophers with 29 points off of 9 for 10 three-point shooting.
Record snowfall in Evanston on Sunday, but could the Cats make it rain indoors? First half, Kristen Inman, here come the dark clouds. Cats up 7-6. Moments later, Nia Coffey, great rotation to the ball, gets herself a nice block. Alex Cohen digs it. For Minnesota, Carly Wagner nets a corner 3 here to put her team up 5. But on the other end, it's Maggie Lyon with other plans, and it's starting to drizzle at Welsh Ryan. Cats go into the locker room with a 10-point lead. Second half now, Alex Cohen, sweet touch. On the other side, Nia Coffey on offense. Let her set her feet, and you're going to get beat. Coffey finished with 12. Finally, Kristen Inman makes it a full-on thunderstorm, tickles the twine, and the Cats would go on to rout the Gophers 70-49. Kristen Inman led all scorers with a 20-point performance. Alex Cohen was 1 board away from another double-double, and the 49-point total put up by the Gophers is their lowest total this season. Cats handling business on the defensive end. I'm now joined by Inside NU's Henry Bushnell and Bobby Pilati for a game we like to call When I Say. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Now, the way this game works is I'll say a word with regards to women's basketball, and these two will associate it with whatever comes to mind. For example, if I said Sports Night, they'd say brilliant show that should win an Emmy and so forth. Gentlemen, are we good on the rules?
Yep, let's do it.
Perfect. Henry, we'll start with you. When I say Indiana, you say.
I'm going to say a must win. It's sort of 2 words, but we'll put the hyphen in there. When you get into February, there's sort of 2 categories of games that you play. There's opportunities for quality wins, which is where if you don't get the win, then it's not really a problem. It's not that detrimental at all. But it's an opportunity to sort of vault yourself into the tournament, which is something NU needs to do. Then there are the games like Indiana where it's a bad loss if you lose it, but if you win it, it's really just holding serve. So that's why I'm going with must win.
And I'm going to go with beatable. The Cats are above Indiana in the standings right now, and while it is going to be difficult for Northwestern to go on the road and win, this really is the kind of game they need to get if they want to make it into the postseason.
It's an interesting take. What about this one? Bobby, let's start with you. When I say weakness, you say.
I'm going to say threes. Northwestern has the worst three-point defense in the Big Ten right now, and that stat is a little skewed by that shootout they had with Iowa, but the point remains the Cats need to be closing out better on those long-range shooters. The return of Lauren Douglas should help, but the Cats really need to pull it together.
I'll go with depth because this team has some really talented players, especially Nia Coffey, Maggie Lyon. But we recently saw when Lauren Douglas missed some time with an injury, McEwen really only was playing 6 players, which is it's a problem at any level of basketball, really. So if NU's going to make the NCAA tournament, they're going to need to have all 7 rotation players playing well, healthy, and out of foul trouble, which is another thing they've struggled with.
So all that said, let's take it to our final question. Henry, we'll start with you. When I say postseason, and you think long and hard about it, you say?
I'm going to go 2 words again, slipping away. Back in December, early January, everybody was really optimistic about this. They beat DePaul, they won at Michigan State. People thought the NCAA tournament was pretty much a lock for this team. But recently, they've sort of started to slip up. They lost that game against Penn State. It was really bad. So I think that optimism is sort of waning away. They've had a couple of bad losses, as I mentioned, and they're really squarely on the bubble right now.
All right, and I'm going to take the opposite side. I'll say hopeful. I think this is still the same Northwestern team that we saw early in the season in December. They've had some struggles, but the Big Ten is a tough conference. I think ultimately they're led by a veteran coach, lots of veteran players. I think Northwestern is going to pull it together and make it to the NCAA tournament.
Well, good points made on both sides. I was jotting some notes there. I actually like the Wildcats' chances this year. They've been playing some of the most consistent basketball that I've seen them play under Coach Joe McEwen. So Bobby Pilati and Henry Bushnell, thank you for joining us on this edition of Sports Night.
After dropping their last 2 Big Ten matchups, Northwestern Wrestling looking to get back to their winning ways against number 10 Nebraska. The 22nd ranked Wildcats dropped 4 of its last 5 matches prior to their meeting with the Cornhuskers, but they didn't do much better this time. For the 3rd straight bout, none of NU's unranked wrestlers came away with the win. Only Mike McMullen, Jason Surtis, and Piers Harger came away with victories. Surtis and Harger looked particularly impressive with major decisions, and Harger earned his 98th career W. Alex Polizzi, meanwhile, was upset by Nebraska's Aaron Studebaker in the first sudden victory period.
Northwestern's own Vice President for Athletics and Recreation has been selected to chair the NCAA's new Division I Council and serve as the representative athletic director on the Division I board. His duties will include council oversight, budgeting, and issues of student-athlete well-being. The newly formed council will oversee the day-to-day business of the 345 schools in Division I under the new NCAA governance structure. The Chicago native and University of Illinois graduate will serve a 2-year term as chair.
We've got tennis highlights coming up next, plus Michael J. Stern is in the building, ready to drop some knowledge. Keep it locked, right here on Sports Night.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for sweet victories, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Why hang around waiting for opportunity to knock when instead you can track opportunity down and knock on its door? You might ask, what's the best way to identify where opportunity lives? Here's a hint. Its door is colored purple. Northwestern University. Opportunity awaits your knock.
Why spend your entire life looking for some on-ramp to the road to opportunity when there's already a well-traveled path? So you may be wondering, what does that path look like? Is it paved with gold? Well, here's a hint. It's actually paved with purple. Northwestern University. Your road starts here.
Men's tennis had a doubleheader this past Sunday, facing Duke in the morning and the University of Illinois Chicago in the evening. The Cats bageled UIC 4-0, but let's take a look at how they fared against the 11th-ranked Blue Devils in the morning. 30th-ranked Northwestern sent out Feder, Babe, and Sean Kirchheimer out for number 1 doubles. First point of the game, or the tiebreaker, excuse me, Babe's poach volley finds the empty net. And this tiebreaker would go on a lot of points. It actually reached 22 points until, on match point, Alvarez's slice volley goes out and it's too long. Northwestern wins the doubles point. And then here you see Sam Shropshire with the big inside out forehand. Nice touch at the net. Wins the drop shot volley. Meanwhile, Babe battles Duke's Chris Mangle in a 3-setter. He shanks the ball, but he'd go on to win the match. Shropshire also wins his match against number 36, Jason Tahir, but NU falls to Duke 5-2. The 22nd ranked women's team also faced the number 5 Blue Devils at Duke, where they too lost by a score of 5-2. Alex Chat and Lok Zilong secured wins at numbers 4 and 5 singles. First singles, Alicia Barnett dropped the 7-5, 6-3 decision to Beatrice Capra, and Minot Perry lost her match in 3 sets, 6-1 in the third.
Lacrosse season is here, and the Wildcats escaped the Evanston weather this season to travel to the University of Southern California to kick off the season on Saturday. USC is not ranked. Keep that in mind for our stat of the week. The Wildcats will play 16 regular season games, and 11 of them will be against top 20 opponents, including number 1 Maryland. The Wildcats are currently ranked number 5 in the Nike poll, with an opportunity to claim the top spot in the nation this season. I'm now joined by the Daily Northwestern's Ava Wallace and our own Tara Wendell to talk about the upcoming season. And I'll just start by saying, guys, I am excited to get the season underway. Can't wait to see how Coach Monty Hiller has her team ready to go. We know how hard they work in the offseason. But this schedule, they better be prepared for it because, like we said, 11 of 16 teams are going to be ranked. Will this schedule affect them negatively, and will they be able to bounce back and win?
I don't think this year's schedule is going to affect them negatively. Kelly Monty Hiller really likes to put her teams through the ringer so that when Final Four weekend comes, they're kind of ready for anything. They've seen it all at that point. So I don't think they're worried about strength of schedule. Like you said, they do play the defending champs Maryland. We're seeing them for the first time in the regular season. We haven't seen them in a while, but I think come Final Four weekend, this team should be well prepared and strong. I don't think they're worried about burning out either. They're pretty used to playing the long season.
I think that the danger in this might be that they're going to hit some really strong teams, some bigger teams, and they might have some trouble with injuries. There's no time for any key players to be injured this season, and that's a big problem. That said, they also hit Maryland, who I'd be scared to hit in the season, and they avoid Florida, which is actually big. They never play their best games against Florida and lost to them twice before they finally beat them last year in the postseason. So I think that's kind of the big fear, but I think this team can handle this schedule.
Alyssa Leonard, she graduated last year after an illustrious career, certainly meant a lot to the program. Last year, she led Northwestern with 53 points on 41 goals. My question here is pretty simple. How does Northwestern go about replacing their leading scorer?
I think it's Lauren Murray at the draw. She took a bunch last year and she did pretty well. But the big thing about Alyssa Leonard is she used to run down that field and she was able to barrel in and finish and score. She was able to beat people who, normally you'd have to get a few passes off. You might have to settle your attack. This year, they're not going to be able to do that, and they're going to be looking to some of their better attackers to go from Lauren Murray down to maybe Kara Mupo or Kaylee Craig and score on fast breaks rather than girls just breaking down the field on their own.
Right, you mentioned Alyssa's scoring, but she also pulled 163 draws, the NCAA record for us last year. So it is about replacing her on the circle. And you mentioned Lauren Murray. She's pretty prepared for that. I think she pulled in 34 draws for the Cats last season. So she should be ready at that position.
We've covered scheduling. We've covered rebooting offensively. So all things considered, guys, how about your preseason picks for the 2015 Wildcats?
Preseason picks, okay. They're not going to win the Big Ten. They've got Maryland in the way for that, so they're definitely not going to be taking home a conference title, but they'll definitely make it to the Final Four weekend, if by nothing else than on sheer force of Kelly Monty Hiller's willpower. But I think it's going to be an interesting Final Four. I think we might see Florida in there for the first time this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're going to hit the Final Four this year. It would be the first time since 2002 that they didn't. But that said, if they avoid Maryland somehow and get to the championship game, they might be able to win a national championship. The other big opponent I see is Syracuse. They're bigger than Northwestern and stronger, and Northwestern doesn't play the best against them. but I think they could definitely make it to the championships this year.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Both of our experts saying that the Wildcats will make it to the Final Four. It'll be an exciting season without a doubt. We'll check back with you two at the end of the season and examine those picks, see how that pans out. Ava Wallace and Tara Wendell, thank you so much for joining us on Lax Analysis. We'll now turn to Michael Stern in studio to give you a Stern Talk.
It's time for a Stern Talk.
Thanks, Brandon. Seemingly every time down the floor against Northwestern, Purdue dumped the ball inside to a big man. The big man got fouled. At game's end, the Boilermakers had attempted 32 foul shots while the Wildcats took 11. This marked the 5th game this season in which an opponent attempted at least 10 more free throws than the Wildcats. Northwestern's record in those 5 games? 0-5, which means the Wildcats have a 10-7 record in all other games. In fact, Northwestern ranks 341st out of 351 D1 teams in free throw rate, or foul shots attempted per 100 offensive plays. The Wildcats sit at 20.8, last in the Big Ten, and far worse than last year's 25.6. So how do the Cats get more free throws? By getting the ball to players who get fouled. Taking a look at the numbers, or the names, of the Cats who've played at least 200 minutes, Alex Ola leads the way with a 49.7% free throw rate. Next comes Sanjay Lumpkin at 46.8. Vic Law follows him at 36.2. No one else in the main rotation is above NU's average free throw rate of 20.8. As Purdue showed the Cats firsthand, more touches for the big man means more free throws, and the numbers say more free throws mean more wins. Axel?
Northwestern swimming wrapped up its last dual meet of the season on Saturday and Sunday, with the men and women taking on both Purdue and Minnesota. Kicking off Saturday's schedule, men's swimming finished 3rd in the 200 free relay. The Boilermakers would come from behind in the final leg to take second place from the Wildcats by 0.21 of a second. Northwestern falls to 23rd ranked Minnesota, 250 to 103, and Purdue as well. Women's swimming team also lost to both Minnesota and Purdue, ranked 19th and 16th respectively. They have 2 weeks off until the Big Ten championships, while the men have 3. Brandon, it's almost that time.
Yeah, that's right, Axel. Don't open a new tab. Facebook can wait. You don't want to miss these plays coming up next.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Why hang around waiting for opportunity to knock when instead you can track opportunity down and knock on its door? You might ask, what's the best way to identify where opportunity lives? Here's a hint. Its door is colored purple. Northwestern University. Opportunity awaits your knock.
Why spend your entire life looking for some on-ramp to the road to opportunity when there's already a well-traveled path? So you may be wondering, what does that path look like? Is it paved with gold? Well, here's a hint. It's actually paved with purple. Northwestern University. Your road starts here.
Welcome back to Sports Night. Now, Brandon, I'm going to let you finish the show, but these plays coming up next, they were the best of all time.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. Here we go, plays of the week, starting it off at number 3. It's Nia Coffey, shuffling her feet, getting the caramel blockiato. Her last name is Coffey. Alex Cohen digs it.
Number 2, Sam Shropshire's got a big game from behind the baseline and soft touch at the net. He gets number 2 with that beautiful drop volley.
And finally, at number 1, Scotty Lindsey been stepping up as a freshman for the Northwestern basketball team here, all over his man, gets the steal in the passing lane, open court ahead, and that will increase his 2K rating for sure. Flexes the muscles. Scotty Lindsey, nice flush. Cats lose it to Purdue. That's all for our show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Throw us a like on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for the latest on all Northwestern sports.
For my partner Brandon Wilson and our outstanding crew, I'm Axel Boada. Good night, and we'll see you next week.